Well, 1 year ago today, the last American troops left Afghanistan and ended a 20-year war, the longest in U.S. history.
That's right. CBS News foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tyab recently returned to the capital city of Kabul and spoke with a former Afghan interpreter who's been unable to leave and says he fears for his life.
The final image of the last U.S. service member leaving Afghanistan, taken at the stroke of midnight 1 year ago. The chaos that has marked the end of America's longest war has come to define President Biden's botched withdrawal following the Taliban's rapid takeover, triggering the collapse of the U.S.-backed government and national army, sending tens of thousands of terrified Afghans to Kabul's main airport, begging to be airlifted to safety, even passing their young children to soldiers, hoping at least they would be saved. A suicide bombing in the crowd carried out by the Afghan affiliate of ISIS killed nearly 200, including 13 U.S. service members. 1 year later, and it's quiet here. All that's left to remind us of the horrors are fragments of people's clothes caught in this razor wire.
Thousands of desperate Afghans came to this gate, the Abbey Gate, in order to flee the Taliban and get on one of those U.S. military aircraft out of the country. But many more were left behind,
including former interpreter Saeed Mortaza Wafa.
We're in a safe house right now.
Sure.
We filmed on smartphones so as not to draw the Taliban's attention to his location.
They always call me American spy. They're still searching for me to find me. Yeah. And
why do they call you an American spy?
Because I was a translator for 3 years for the U.S. Air Forces, and I was very close to the United States Air Forces.
Wafa was based at the Bagram airfield, which was the largest U.S. military base in Afghanistan. Retired Master Sergeant with the Air Force David Piskorik is desperate to get Wafa out.
Do you believe his life is in danger?
I do. He's always been a very truthful individual, especially while we were, working side by side and hand in hand. I have no reason to doubt whether or not he's in danger.
It's unknown exactly how many Afghan translators remain trapped in Afghanistan. According to the U.S. government, 17,000 Afghans, including Wafa, have submitted applications for what's known as special immigration visas, while another 74,000 are still working their way through the highly complex submission process. For Wafa, 1 year on, too little is being done to improve things.
If you could ask President Joe Biden one question, what would it be?
Help the translators to get into safety. We helped Americans. So why he cannot help all those translators who left behind in here in a very hard situation?
The U.S. government has said it's trying to streamline the visa process, but for far too many Afghans still living in fear of the Taliban, it's not happening fast enough.
Imtiaz Tyab joins us now. And Imtiaz, I'm struck by so many components of your report, including those fragments of clothes still caught up in the razor wire 1 year later. And what's also stunning to me is that despite the dramatic footage of so many hundreds of Afghans who were able to leave while panicking, many more who helped the U.S. effort were left behind, like the interpreter you spoke with. Just give us a bit of a reality check. How long is the visa submission process for him and for others? And realistically, how long will it take for those who are in danger to get out?
Errol, Anne-Marie, so good to talk to you. And you're absolutely right, Errol. When we were standing there at the Abbey Gate, that place in which we saw those horrible images just in that report, these scenes of desperation, and of course that very gate where an ISIS suicide bomber detonated a device, killing nearly 200 people, 13 of them U.S. service members, and to be there 1 year later, and it's eerily quiet there. There's really nobody there anymore. And as you rightly point out, all you see are fragments of clothing, fragments of people's lives, of the desperation people had to get out of there, handing their babies to soldiers, some still not knowing where those children are. And there are many, many, as you rightly point out, left behind, including the man who we interviewed in our report. And as we were saying, it's hard to say how many Afghans remain left behind, but the process of getting out is so difficult for them. The special immigration visa, which was a visa which was set up for translators, not just in Afghanistan, but also in Iraq, is a notoriously complex process. It's about a 14-step application process. And if there's any paperwork that's wrong, most have to start over again. Now, it's something that the U.S. government has said that they are trying to streamline, is trying to improve, but that's very small comfort for the people that we've been meeting, including people like Wafa, who are living in fear of the Taliban. They fear that the Taliban will retaliate against them for working with the Americans. Now, the Taliban says that there's a general amnesty, that anybody who worked with the U.S. or any foreign forces will be forgiven. However, if you look at reports from leading human rights groups, they say that the Taliban has carried out extrajudicial killings, have arrested people without charge, and really have carried out what they've described as revenge attacks. And so that fear is very real, but this bureaucratic process still remains. Anne-Marie, Errol.
It's been a year. You think that in a year they could streamline the process?
Yeah.
You know, you got to wonder how hard they're working to get that done. I'm curious, Imtiaz. You know, I can understand how some of these translators would feel abandoned. What is the view of the United States in Afghanistan right now? How do they feel about the U.S.?
You know, it's interesting, and I'm going to answer this question in two ways. We understand, or we've been told, that from the Biden administration's point of view, when it comes to Afghanistan, they're essentially pursuing a policy which is effectively known as off the front page, that they don't want Afghanistan to be a top or front page news story, a top story for us, because of how disastrous the withdrawal was. Botched is the word that is to describe it, and the horrific situation that Afghanistan finds itself today. The UN is describing the situation on the ground in Afghanistan as the world's worst humanitarian crisis. We saw babies starving in hospital. We saw people in rural parts of Afghanistan going hungry, not knowing where their next meal is coming from. The economy in this country has collapsed. Part of that has to do with the fact that the Biden administration decided to freeze $7 billion in Afghanistan's central bank reserves. $7 billion. A lot of that was personal savings of ordinary Afghans who can no longer go to the bank to withdraw money. But even further complicating things, we have to remember that there is a war in Ukraine going on, which of course has drained a lot of money that would otherwise have gone to Afghanistan for humanitarian purposes to that conflict. And more importantly, Western countries, including the U.S., are struggling to deal with Afghanistan, because how do you provide aid to a country which is effectively run by the Taliban, many of their leaders who are on terrorist lists? And so it is this extraordinary complex situation. But it's interesting. I asked the question again and again of many Afghans, you know, what do you say to President Biden? What do you say to Americans? What do you want Americans to know about this situation? And more often than not, they weren't angry at the U.S. They appreciated the fact that at least some of them, for the 20 years of the U.S.'s involvement, saw their lives improve. They were able to go to school. They had infrastructure which allowed them to get aid or get health care, further education. But with the Taliban's takeover, almost all of that is now gone. And so a lot of the anger is being directed at the Taliban, but that anger is quiet, because the Taliban, as we've seen from the last time when they were in power, from 1996 to 2001, to them in power today, is that they are a group which does not accept any kind of dissent whatsoever, and they have cracked down on dissent in Afghanistan very, very hard. So the situation on the ground in Afghanistan remains very dire, and the situation for Afghans remains very bleak. Anne-Marie, Errol.
Imtiaz, thank you very much.